Okay.
Right on. Well, let's get rolling. So, thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm Justin Latomsky from Robinson Supply, and I'm joined by Mark Muzyka, the National Sales Manager at Rheem. Mark, how you doing?
I'm good. Yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. So we're talking all about tankless water heaters today. So let's just jump right in. For everyone listening, let's cut right to the chase. So tankless versus tank water heaters, the traditional tank water heaters. What's really the difference? And more importantly, like what's sort of those high level pros and cons of each? I can probably imagine there's quite a few. So if someone's new to the game, a contractor's new to the game, they're coming in and they want to know what's the benefit of both, what's the disadvantage of both. What are those?
Well, so the biggest advantage with tankless is that it only runs when you have demand. A tank water heater will run all day long and cycle on and off to keep that water hot in the tank. So whenever you come home, there's always hot water. The tankless unit comes on when demand gets called and your hot water gets produced. So it's not running all day long. The other big advantages are it's more efficient. You find a tankless is going to run on an EF anywhere from, depending on the manufacturer, 9.2 up to 9.6, 9.7, where a tank water heater, you're probably somewhere between, a 0.62 energy factor, maybe a 0.67 for power vents, and then up to a 0.80 for a condensing tank. So you're much more efficient. And then there's the size. It's fantastic when you're doing a renovation and you need that extra space in a mechanical room to maybe put a bedroom or expand your living space for a family room or somewhere else to put it in the house. So now you've gotten a smaller mechanical room, which gives you more living space.
Gotcha.
Biggest con would be probably cost. They are more expensive than a traditional unit, and there's a little bit more work that may need to be done depending on what you're replacing it with.
Okay, that makes sense. I've also heard, there's the possible worry on colder climates that they may not be able to produce the hot waters as quick enough, just with the water source coming in being a little bit colder. Is that something that you've seen?
10 or 15 years ago when tankless first came to Canada, the people who manufactured it, even our parent company, Paloma, didn't quite understand the climate here. So yeah, there was some challenges around the cold weather, but everything now is designed to run down to minus 30 or minus 40 degrees outside. So for the most part, as long as you're not in an extraordinarily windy area and you've got some kind of coverage for that, you're fine. It'll run and produces the same amount of hot water. The biggest difference is if you're in a hot climate in the States where your incoming water temperature is 70 degrees, you're going to get twice as much hot water as you would by being up in Canada where our incoming water temperature is somewhere around 40.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I think that the biggest positive from, even a homeowner's perspective is that endless water supply, right? It's not necessarily instant, but it's endless and you're not going to run out. And I think that that's a huge advantage, especially for like multifamily or, multi people living in a house. You don't want to run out of that water supply. So what's sort of that ideal scenario for a tankless water heater where you're going to maximize as much of those pros as you can and minimize as much of the cons as you can?
It's people who are interested in being more green. Really is a way to look at to getting into this, and that's where a lot of the interest comes from. The endless supply of hot water. There's a lot of people who have multiple showers now in houses. You've got children living at home. We've seen a greater need for hot water during COVID. People are washing their hands constantly. There's more people are in the house now because we're not at work. We've got more times when people were working and in school, things would be staggered where you didn't maybe have as much demand. Now we're seeing a greater demand because there's 5 people at home in a house at one time instead of 1 or 2 at a time. So that's really made a big difference in how the market's being looked at and where people are looking for hot water.
That makes perfect sense. Is that sort of the biggest benefit to the homeowner then? Is that endless hot water and it's sort of operating more efficient? But like you mentioned, the cost is sort of a factor, right? So what would sort of be that biggest deciding factor for a homeowner to promote the positives of a tankless, where they want to invest in the cost to make that switch?
Well, I think they have to look at the pros of how it's going to help them and look at the cons and then kind of do a bit of an analysis to see that, your payback, how fast that can be. If you've going from an atmospheric water heater to a tankless, your payback's going to be pretty quick. It could be in a 5 to 6 year window because now you've taken something that's a very inefficient water heater, and the older it gets, the more inefficient it gets, to something now that's extremely efficient. So you've improved almost, you've gone from maybe a 0.60 energy factor to almost a 9.6. You've gone up almost 40% in terms of energy efficiency. So now your payback should be able to be the deciding factor that sways the cost. So it's making an investment today for a payback over the next 20 years.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. Yeah, it's the upfront initial cost, and then you're going to see that money all come back, no problem, with the next little bit.
And
So,
the neat
no,
thing is there's people will finance and rent and lease depending on where you are and how you are in the marketplace. We're starting to see contractors offer some kind of financing, or somebody will be able to offer financing. So, now you can sit down and have a minimal monthly payment and tie that into the savings. It's going to pay for itself in no time.
yeah, that's perfect. So let's say a homeowner makes that decision. I want to go to a tankless, and they call up their contractor. What's the work like for a contractor to make that switch?
Biggest challenges will be your gas line coming in. You'll need a 3/4 inch gas line, where most people in homes, and more older homes, are 1/2 inch. I think a lot more new construction in the last 5 to 10 years has upgraded the size of your gas line in a house, so there may not be as much work in something newer. And then it's going to be venting. Depending on what you've got, if you've had an atmospheric, you've got a chimney vent. If you've got a power vent, you've got a 1-pipe system. Most tanklesses run on 2-pipe. And depending again on where you're putting it, if you're getting into a small mechanical room, you may not have the option to go to 1-pipe. You may need the 2nd pipe. So now you're looking at, do I have a finished basement, and am I on an exterior wall? If your mechanical room's on an exterior wall, your gas meter's 20 feet away from it, you can go up and out. Your installation's actually going to be fairly inexpensive, not much more than a power vent.
Oh, gotcha. Well, that's a lot easier than I was anticipating it was going to be. And I know, just looking at this, your products alone, I know you have a lot of venting options where you can have longer venting, where you have that freedom to kind of move it around in those different settings that work best for it, right?
Yeah, we can do 60 feet on 2-inch, and 150 feet on 3-inch. So, unless you're living in the world's biggest house, you should be more than adequate to finding a venting solution that'll work for you guys. And most people, hopefully have had their mechanical room on an outside wall, or, depending on where they put it, and move their appliances to that part of their house. So that makes a lot of sense and easy to do.
Right on. Okay, so it's installed, it's ready to go. Now let's talk about maintenance. Like, what sort of regular maintenance for a tankless? In terms of how frequently, who should be doing the maintenance? Is it the homeowner's responsibility, or does the contractor have to come back?
No, the maintenance is fairly simple, and everything depends on usage. If you've got a family of 6 people in there, and you're clean people, you shower daily, you've got, your dishwasher running, washing machines going, and hot water happening, you're probably going to have to deline that unit, or descale the unit, once every year and a half to 2 years, depending again on how much you use it. If you're a family of 2 and you travel lots, and you've got your vacation home, or you travel a lot for work, you might do it every 3 or 4 years. So that's really your biggest amount of maintenance on the unit. It's fairly simple. You'll need 2 pieces of garden hose, a small pump, and a bucket that they can all buy through Robinson. You hook it up, it runs through. You use food grade vinegar, nothing else, just food grade vinegar. If you like the smell of vinegar, it smells like a big bag of salt and vinegar chips got opened in your house for a couple of hours. Goes away nice and easily, but that takes all the lime and sediment out. It takes about an hour and a half to do, and the homeowner can do it, or your contractor can come in, probably charge you an hour service call. So for $100, they can come in and do the work for you as well.
Gotcha. So it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, that's excellent.
When the contractor purchases the unit, I know you guys make sure that they always walk out with a set of service valves. This way, it's just a simple garden hose connection. You do your female and male connector ends, and off it goes. There's nothing magical, or there's something that's very technical to do. It's very simple. It's hooking the garden hoses up to the connections and opening up the valves.
Right on. Well, that's perfect. And so let's talk a little bit more about the industry. I know over the past little while, tankless is gaining serious ground. It's growing a lot more in the market. Where do you see the future of this industry? 5, 10, even 20 years out from now?
It's been changing a lot. The last 2 or 3 years, we've started to see the impact on the residential tank market. The tank market's about 1 million units in Canada, and it's actually started to erode, where we can actually see the tankless taking over part of that business. It's plateaued slightly over the last couple of years, but we're probably seeing 5 to 10% growth now moving forward over the next 5 years. And the next 10 to 15 is where the regulatory changes, where the government we're going to start seeing condensing will be the only gas technology you'll have in Canada. So that'll mean you'll either be going to a condensing tank or a tankless. And price-wise, they're going to be about the same. And as we move forward, we're seeing more technology come into tankless, so they're going to be easier to install. We've got new product coming out with one pipe systems, or you can bank them together and have two units going in the same common venting. So now it'll be easier to take out and put outside of the house. So it's becoming more flexible for that. And you know, like I said, at some point you'll probably be seeing 50 to 60% of the market being tankless.
Yeah, that's wild. Like over the next like 10 years or so, eh?
10 to 15, yeah. Like I said, the government's going to play a big hand in this because we've really not done any changes in terms of stuff. We've increased the efficiencies on electrics. We've increased the efficiency slightly on gas product. But when you look at furnaces, there's no more chimney vented furnaces. They've been gone for 10 years, maybe more. We still make chimney or atmospheric vented water heaters. So at some point, the government, you know, when we're probably out of all of this stuff, I know there's been things on the go. We'll start to see that, you know, legislation come that'll increase efficiencies for standards, and then eventually move away from the tanks we see today, the atmospheric and power vents.
Gotcha. Perfect. No, that's going to be exciting to see kind of where it takes off and where it goes from there. That's for sure.
These are kind of like, think of these like the big screen TVs. You know, yeah. 10 years ago, a big screen TV probably cost you $10,000, $15,000. Now you can pick up a huge one for $1,000, and tankless has been the same. You know, they've gotten less expensive to install, and they've now gotten a lot more inexpensive to purchase. So they're now becoming more of that, you know, not a commodity, but more of a day-to-day type of purchase, where before they were, ooh, geez, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's more practical for the homeowner for sure.
Yeah, it was only the early adopters who bought them, who had the wherewithal to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Right on. Well, thank you so much, Mark. Let's keep it short and sweet. I think we can wrap up here. So I really appreciate your time for joining me today. And for everyone listening, if you have any other questions about tankless, feel free to contact your Robinson Supply sales rep. You can give your local branch a shout. You can give us an email, a call. You can even just shoot us a message on Instagram. We'll be happy to answer any questions for you guys. So everyone, thanks for watching. Take it easy.